Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody. Today we are going to take a look at the new moon in the sign of Leo that just happened over the weekend, and we are going to talk about some of the interesting signatures of the lunar cycle ahead, given this seeding point of the new moon in Leo. So that's our goal for today, kind of give us a big picture of the month of August from the lunar cycle standpoint. And I'm going to be breaking this down without notes today. I mean, I have a list of mental notes, but I want it to be a little bit more freewheeling in my exploration. And sometimes I do better work when I go that direction. And I can always sort of feel when it's time for that. So we'll see. Anyway, before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to reach the goal of 70,000 subscribers by the fall equinox. If you're not yet subscribed and you listen regularly, we would love to have your support. And thank you to everyone who's already subscribed. If you give it the thumbs up and the subscribe, helps us grow. We really appreciate it. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. And when you go over there right now, I just encourage you to check out our monthly talks under the live events tab. You can see that we have a webinar on the 8th house coming up on August 22nd and some talks on Venus and the astrology of relationships in September and October. So check those out. I am a little time crunched today because I'm in that time of year when it's sort of vacation time for my family, and it's my daughter's birthday. So I'm getting this done and then trying to focus on spending the day with her. So it's a little bit of, again, as I've said recently, this is just that time of year where the content is a little shorter because I'm trying to make sure I take that quality downtime with the family when the kids are home from school and all of that good stuff. But no less dedicated to unpacking the astrology, here you can see on Sunday, August 4th, we have the new moon in the sign of Leo. And this new moon in the sign of Leo is configured pretty closely to a couple of other planets that are worth looking at. This new moon is configured very closely to the upcoming Mars and Jupiter conjunction, sort of sandwiched right in between them. And so the Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Gemini is also a part of the Jupiter-Saturn square that's happening. They basically happen at the exact same time. That's a really interesting part of this moon cycle I want to explore more in a minute. Of course, the other thing that's happening is about a day or two into the cycle, you can see that as the moon goes through Virgo, and this is like an early waxing crescent moon, we can see that Mercury will turn retrograde in the sign of its own domicile and exaltation. It's a nice placement for a Mercury retrograde. Like, you could do a lot worse for a Mercury retrograde than having it retrograde in one of its best positions to start with. Venus, of course, enters Virgo where she's in her fall, and that contributes to maybe some tensions that are going to come up as the moon cycle continues. These are some of the big astrological themes that tone the cycle because they happen right away. If we move forward, what I find really interesting here is that we have such a strong Uranian signature throughout the cycle still. I mean, it's kind of like, when are we done with this kind of theme of Uranian disruption and revolution and unexpected changes in life direction? That is what Uranus is famous for. July was a big one. If you think, for example, of what everyone is talking about in the collective political situation in the United States with the presidential race, it took a big turn unexpectedly. Now, you guys know I don't cover political astrology on my channel, or really mundane or collective events at all. But it is worth mentioning a few times as an example of what Uranian events look like. They are unexpected. You cannot see them coming. Even when you know something Uranian is going to happen, you still never quite see it coming. And it shifts everything dramatically and suddenly. Well, here's our first quarter moon in Scorpio that's opposing Uranus. And so we have that first quarter moon comes through and immediately is engaging in an opposition with Uranus. If we take this forward a little bit more, we will see that right after that first quarter moon, we get Mars and Jupiter conjoining in Gemini and both moving into the square with Saturn. the Jupiter-Saturn cycle is historical and very dynamic. And so we have a major mundane transit unfolding, the synodic cycles of Jupiter and Saturn. We've spent time in other episodes discussing at length. We'll be discussing it again later this week. As the two planets come together, we're going to be doing several episodes refreshing on what the Jupiter-Saturn cycles are all about. So I'm not going to go into that in depth right now, but suffice to say, Mars-Jupiter getting together is made more impactful because of the fact that it's happening at the same time that the Jupiter-Saturn square is perfecting. That is also happening as we have a moon that is now in waxing gibbous phase, so growing in power. And then if we project this forward just a touch more, Mars goes through the square to Saturn on August 16th. And then on the 18th here, we have the moon getting into Aquarius. And let's roll this forward just a little bit. Bring that moon all the way to full. And now we have something really incredible. We have the full moon in an exact square with Uranus. That exact square is also happening at the time that Jupiter and Saturn are in an exact square. So the Jupiter-Saturn dynamic it perfects exactly, on August 19th, at the same exact time that we have a full moon in Aquarius with the sun and moon both square exactly to Uranus. Mercury retrograde will also just prior to this, if I back this up just a touch, Mercury will be moving through the heart of the sun on the 18th, the day before the full moon. And just one day before that, on the 17th, will be moving for the second time through its retrograde in a square to Uranus. So it is quite a Uranian sequence from August 17th, Uranus-Mercury square. On the 18th, Mercury at the heart of the sun. On the 19th, we have Jupiter square Saturn with the full moon in Aquarius and the sun and moon both square to Uranus. So the new moon, if we back this up, the new moon that just came through here on August 4th is incredibly potent because of where the moon cycle is taking us. So what I would recommend as a first starting point is to look at the whole sign house of Leo. And what I'm going to do right now is just very briefly, so you guys know I do this once in a while, I just want to show you the house topics that you should be looking at based on your rising sign. So let's say you're an Aries rising. This new moon is landing in your 5th house. That means that the center of action, regardless of the Uranian influence in your 2nd or the Aquarian influence in your 11th or the Jupiter-Saturn square, all of those are really important. You could look at any of those houses for further information. But when we're looking at the relevance of a moon cycle, it will anchor all of the peripheral transits within the domain of where the new moon took place. You can always do that every month. If there are major transits happening, you can always contextualize them within the starting place of the new moon. It's always fair to do that. Of course, another thing that people always will come back at is well, it didn't work. Well, it's also really important to understand where any of the major transits of the month are pinging, hitting in your chart, because I'm telling you right now, look at the whole sign house of Leo for the new moon. But if, for example, Uranus is on your ascendant, or if it's exactly opposite Venus and Scorpio or something, then that may take precedence. But just from the standpoint of how to locate the relevance of all these major transits that we were just looking at, Mars, Jupiter, Jupiter, Saturn, the full moon square Uranus, start by thinking of this. There's a seed that's being planted in the whole sign house of Leo. If you're an Aquarius, that's the place of creativity, pleasure, children, joy, happiness, and even things like pregnancy. If you're a Taurus, it's home, family, property, parents, living environment. That's the 4th house. If you're a Gemini, it's the 3rd place, local environment, mind, body, speech, communication, intelligence, and the sort of culture that you live in, like a fish tank. The seed is being planted there. If you're a Cancer, this has to do with things like money, assets, business, resources. If you are a Leo, it has to do with your own identity, your body, your psychological characteristics, the need to grow or change or evolve as an individual. It can also have to do with health and the body again. If you're a Virgo, this is taking place in a blind spot, an unconscious spot. We're talking about the development of something happening in a spot that is in the 12th, always thought of as hard to see, invisible, behind the scenes, secretive, or unconscious. So there's learning there. If you're a Libra, this is groups and friends and allies and social networks of people. If you are a Scorpio, you're looking at the 10th house of the place of public facing self, reputation, career, and things that you're involved with that take you out into the greater society. Society. Okay, sorry. If you're a Sagittarius, Sag rising, this is in the 9th place, the place of beliefs, higher learning, education, mentors, spirituality, truth, your philosophical world. If you are a Capricorn, this is the 8th house, the place of your karmic contracts with other people, the give and take, what you owe and what is owed to you, the bonds and the validation that come through other people that you seek from others or that you seek to free yourself from. Aquarius, relationships, the house of love and relationships is where the new moon is hitting. If you are a Pisces, it's in the 6th house, the place of work, sacrifice, drudgery to a certain extent, but also the things that you're working toward that require a lot of sacrifice and that require a lot of heart and conviction. So that, especially with Leo in the 6th. So those are just, a few reminders. Locate the meaning of the new moon by the topics of the house it's in, given your birth chart's rising sign. This is a whole sign house point of view, as I've said in almost every horoscope video I've ever made, but in case you forget that. So the other thing that I think is important is to recognize what kinds of tensions exist between Leo and Aquarius. Usually, like some classic tensions that will come up in a moon cycle where it's new moon Leo, full moon Aquarius will be me and myself and my unique sense of purpose and personhood, my unique sense of what gives my life transcendent meaning, the ambitions that form and shape a sense of legacy and destiny, and the sense of being special because I have a special mission or purpose. These are very Leonine qualities. Aquarius is, by contrast, a little bit more detached. If Leo is like the feeling of living into a destiny promised by a birth chart, then Aquarius is like the study and science of the birth chart, right? So there's something that's asking us to deepen our sense of who we are, what gives our life meaning and purpose, what our ambitions are, while there is also something that's asking us to pull back and look at things from a distance, to sort of lay out the blueprints of our life and look more objectively at why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it. And are we doing things that really give our lives a sense of specialness and shine, and to get objective and to grab some distance and to maybe create some important revolutions or revisions when it comes to life purpose. So life purpose looks different for everybody. You can get a good read on it based on the sun sign in all of our charts. But a cycle that culminates with Jupiter square Saturn, which often has to do with major revising or shifting of structures, and trying to breathe new life into them and revise or shift larger structures in our lives, paired with the sun in Leo opposite the moon in Aquarius, both square to Uranus and Taurus. Is my life purpose needing, in order to fulfill my life purpose, what kinds of revisions and structures do I need to change to support this vision of destiny? What needs overhauling? Where is a revolution needed? Where is a striking sudden change required? Where am I feeling inspired to completely shift the narrative and revise and redo various elements of my life to support the person I'm becoming? Those are some big picture ways of looking at the kind of existential moment that is the full moon, especially. You're going to see these themes growing and developing between the new and the full. This is an opportunity to do things differently in order to either more deeply support and sustain your sense of purpose and what gives you shine and happiness, or it is an opportunity to completely start rewriting and flipping the script. That's how I see it. So it is interesting to me that this new moon takes place with the sun in its own domicile, powerful, but in the bound of Saturn. In the bound of Saturn, when this new moon is configured to Mars and Jupiter in Gemini. So a lot of like, let's do it. There is so much enthusiasm and energy, but there's also this check from Saturn. What do you have to let go of? What do your no's have to be? What do your limits or boundaries need to look like in order to take on this new exciting version of yourself? What do you have to cut out? What do you have to say no to? What do you have to limit? Or what's trying to hold you back? And how do you work around that or through that obstacle? Or what sacrifices are required? Or what compromises do you need to make? Those Saturn will likely provide, and there will be an emotional and maybe even a needy kind of energy behind it. Some of that neediness might need to grow up, or we might need to say, I can't give you everything you want. Some of it is also a requirement that we be sensitive. Can't just roll forward with so much without consideration, thoughtfulness, and a degree of compromise. So that's what I'm seeing from this moon cycle. I hope this is useful for you. Again, this early part of the week, my family's in town. We're celebrating my daughter's 6th birthday. So these are a little bit short and sweet. In August, I usually start rolling back into a rhythm, especially in the later part as school kicks back in. But I just like to be honest with you guys because I know some of you really like longer content. Some of you apparently like the shorter content too. So, there's something for everyone at different times of the year, I guess. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already subscribed, please do help us reach our goal of 70,000 subscribers by the fall equinox. That'd be super cool. But either way, hope you guys are having a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.